Hi and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alyssa and I draw a lot of stuff, mainly Animal Crossing characters lately because that's been all that's been on anyone's mind for the last few months. So I will be uploading a non-Animal Crossing speed paint video in the next couple of days of a mermaid I drew for Mermay. Very excited to post that video, so that'll be up in a couple of days. But I wanted to do another real-time drawing video on this channel. I had done one previously of Tom Nook. I'll put a card up in the corner. You can click that if you want to watch that. It's about 45 minutes long, mainly music with me talking about my drawing process, much like I'll be doing today. And I had positive reception to that. A lot of people seemed to like it, and the watch time wasn't as bad on that as I thought it was going to be. Normally people, dip out after a couple minutes. That's just how YouTube and attention spans work, but people seem to really like the longer format, so I'm trying it out again and seeing if you guys are interested in this kind of thing, or if you don't want to see any more long form content from me like this. Let me know in the comments below whether you prefer the more condensed, 10-15 minute long sped up speed paints, or if you prefer this more laid back real-time style, because I'm happy to do either style of video. They're both the same amount of time for me to make, really. So anyway, today I will be talking about my drawing process behind drawing Blathers, of course, and I'll be talking a little bit about the museum itself and things I'd love to see from the museum in the future in the game, and talk about my own museum progress in 2 of my islands. So I have a new island. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So if you're new to this channel, the only 2 art programs I use for this Animal Crossing art are Procreate for iPad Pro, which is what you're seeing on screen right now, and later in the video I use Adobe Animate. You may know it as Flash, but I use that to make vector shapes, which I'll explain more about that part of my art process later in the video when I get to that point in the video. So I wanted Blathers here to have a really optimistic, cheery kind of look on his face. I really love when he gets excited about stuff, when you bring him a new fossil and he's all excited to tell you that you've completed the Archaeopteryx, and he can tell you all the fun facts he knows about it. I love when he gets all excited about stuff. So I wanted him to look very bright and very excited to tell you about something he knows in this picture. And I wanted to try my own style of eyes. I kind of go back and forth on this when I'm drawing the Animal Crossing villagers in my A to Z series, whether to draw the more on-model style eyes, what they actually look like in the game, versus my own personal stylistic taste in eyes. And sometimes it pays off one way better than the other. Sometimes it feels wrong to draw the eyes any way other than how they look in the game. Like if a character just has dots for eyes, it feels weird to give them like whites of their eyes with pupils and irises and stuff, so I keep it simple like the model. In Blathers' case, his eyes in game take up probably 50% of his head. It's very like nice graphic semicircle shapes with his eyebrows, but I wanted to try doing something a little more, I don't know, Disney-esque, or I don't know, just how I like to draw eyes. They're a little bit closer together, and I tend to err on the side of cross-eyed looking eyes, sometimes to my detriment, as I had a lot of comments on the video with Anka in the thumbnail. Her eyes, like, they're crossed, and it's not wrong per se, but the heights of the pupils are a little off. If I could redo it, I would tweak the eyes a little bit, but I do tend to err on the side of cross-eyed eyes when I draw cartoons, because I just think it's a cute look. I like when cartoons look a little bit cross-eyed and their eyes are a little bit too close together. It's just something I really enjoy. So I wanted to do that kind of eye look for Blathers and see if it worked, and I think overall the eyes that I drew on him fit his head and look cute and all that. Maybe not as owl-like as his in-game model eyes, but I think they work regardless. So let's talk about how I have 2 islands now. So I don't really buy a lot of stuff for myself, and I had to cancel a lot of tickets for stuff when I had a trip planned early March of all times. A friend of mine was supposed to come out. I mentioned it in a previous video. I had bought tickets to like a Broadway show, and I'd bought tickets to a bunch of other stuff for us to do together, right? I'd been saving for this big thing, and then it all got canceled for obvious reasons, and I got refunded, and I had just been sitting on that money. And I decided with that money, I bought myself a pair of roller skates, which are coming in the mail hopefully soon, like everybody else who watches people skating on TikTok and YouTube and is like, oh, that looks like a thing I could learn how to do in my spare time now that we're all quarantined, right? And part of that money I also spent on a Switch Lite. And I've wanted a second island, but I thought like, oh, I don't have money for that. And then I'm like, wait, yeah, I do. Like, I'm not spending it on a trip or like Broadway tickets or anything like that. And I never really treat myself. I haven't bought like new clothes in forever. And the last time I did buy new clothes, they were thrifted new clothes. So I was like, you know what? Treat myself. We're all stuck in the house. We might as well have something else fun to do. And I love Animal Crossing, so it seemed like a wise choice. So my first island is called Pacifica, and it's very tropical, very lush tropical, palm trees, tiki torches, bright colored flowers, that kind of vibe, right? And my second island is called Attica, and I know there was like a prison escape or something that happened in Attica. I don't know. I called it that because that was the name of the township where I grew up in Michigan. My family doesn't live there anymore, but where I used to live there briefly. And I always liked the name because it reminded me of like Atticus Finch, you know? So I just like how it sounds, and I liked having two names that, you know, Pacifica and Attica, they sound good together. They sound like sister cities, right? Because they are, like, the people there know each other kind of thing. And they're both in the same Alyssa Animal Crossing cinematic universe, if you will. So on Attica, I want it to be very, like, Michigan inspired. Like, I made a big lake with houses around the lake with little piers, little docks. And I don't have palm trees on the beach because the idea is that it's like the coast of a Great Lake. So it's like coolers and fishing rods, and like some of the houses are going to have couches in the front yard and bonfires and stuff. It's going to be very like hillbilly and Michigan and like country and cute. And my character there is going to have a farmhouse / B&B kind of thing. It's going to be very quaint and folksy and whatever. So that's what I've been doing with my spare time. Anyway, I say all of this because I'm always so torn when I'm playing my second island, when I catch a new fish or whatever. Like half of me, like I always end up donating it because I feel bad, but half of me is like, why do I care if my museum on this side island is full? I'm literally never gonna look at it. I'm never gonna have people come over and visit it. And like, it doesn't matter if this museum is full or not, but I feel bad not giving Blathers the new thing, which is such a stupid feeling to feel guilty about. But, you know, the first thing always goes to Blathers, and whenever I catch a new fish, I could just sell it to CJ, because I've been time traveling on my side island. That's the other thing, is it's completely lawless. I'm, like, at the end of June on that island, because I keep skipping ahead every time I move a house or whatever. Pacifica, my main island, I do not time travel, have not time traveled, will never time travel. But on Attica, it's completely lawless, and I skip around to whatever month I want. And once I have all the houses I want in the places I want, I'm going to skip ahead to fall and get all the mushroom stuff and whatever. So, point is, I fish a lot on there to get money I find days that I have CJ fish for decent sized fish and sell them to him for money so I can continue moving my houses. And every time I catch a new fish, like I got a catfish and I got like a, tilapia and I got all this other crap. And I felt so bad. The idea was like, oh, I could sell these and then pay off this bridge, or I could give them to Blathers. And it's so stupid that I wasted all that time giving that to Blathers. So anyway, do you guys have multiple islands or play on like your friends or your kids' Switches or your spouse's Switches? And like, do they care about the museum and, or do they not care about the museum and you go there and it's empty? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what you guys do with your museums on any secondary islands you may be participating in. And let me know if you're a crazy person like me and you have 2 islands, because I've seen a couple people in Facebook groups that have 2 islands, so at least I'm not alone, but it would be comforting to know that I'm not the only crazy person who spent money just to have a second Animal Crossing island. Anyway, getting back to the art, since I've been talking about that for a while, I love donating to the museum and I love fleshing it out. I love not going in there for a long time. Like, I go in there to assess fossils and to donate, but I love not going in the rooms for a long time, and because then every time I go into the rooms, they're they're more full. Like, there's a huge jump in how many fish are in the aquariums and all that kind of stuff. So that's a lot of fun. I said I was going to talk about the art, and then I talked about the museum again. So This is good timing. I was worried I had rambled about the museum for far too long. So now I'm in Adobe Animate, and these pink lines I'm making using the pencil tool, which is a, think of it like an outline. There's outlines and there's fills, right? So I use this pencil tool to outline all the different basic shapes I want to fill in with solid colors that I reference from the drawing that's underneath. This pink is on a new layer, right? So I'm taking the pink pencil and I'm outlining all the shapes that I want to keep, and then just using the fill bucket to fill in the colors that I actually want to keep for the basic flat color artwork that I'm going to bring in to Procreate and then add the shading and highlights and all the detail work too. So that's the basic process, because in Animate you can then highlight the entire image when you've got all the shapes set. You can highlight the entire image and then delete just the outlines, leaving behind only the fills. So that's how I do it, and people always ask, like, how do I do that? I wouldn't recommend it. I only do it because I love having super clean edges on my shapes for this style, and it's not something that's as easy for me to achieve in Procreate, though it is something I do hand draw in Procreate for some client work I do. For like illustration work, I will just hand draw the shapes in Procreate, but I really like this really clean vector shape look that I get doing this, and it's just how I like to work, because I've been doing work in Adobe Animate for as long as I can remember. So this is just an optional step that I take to make this particular art style, but it is totally optional, and in fact kind of roundabout, and involves a second program, so I really wouldn't recommend it unless you happen to already work in Adobe Animate making art like I do, and you just want to try out doing these super graphic shapes. You could also do this in Illustrator or any other vector-based program. Somebody had commented saying, like, you should try Clip Studio Pro, they have vector brushes, but they're not truly vector. It would work for something like this because the final image is going to be raster-based, which, you know, I don't know the technical definitions of these things, but in short, raster is just as big as it is. So say you make a, 4,000 pixel by 4,000 pixel or 10 inch by 10 inch picture, which is what I'm doing here. I'm doing 10 inch by 10 inch, 300 or 400 dpi or something like that. Once I make it that big, it's that big. And if I tried to stretch it out to make it as big as a billboard, it would look really grainy and pixely, which is what happens when you like zoom in on a small, tiny quality photo. It gets grainy and blurry because it's only that size. You can't enhance like they do on CSI, right? But with vector, you actually could enhance like CSI, because with vector art programs, the shapes are determined like using math. So you could zoom into this flat vector shape infinitely. You could stretch it as big as the side of a building, and it wouldn't lose any quality at all. So I use that for like client work because people will want things for posters and whatever use, and vector is just more versatile. Like a lot of logo designers will work in Adobe Illustrator because it's vector. Like you wouldn't want a logo that you couldn't resize larger or whatever. So long story short, I looked into the Clip Studio Paint vector tool, and it's not actually like, you can't export it as a like an editable vector file format or something. So it doesn't really work for my workflow, but it would work for art like this where the final product is going to be raster based. See what I'm doing with the toenails, where I'm just kind of isolating these shapes using the pencil tool here, just outlining based on my really rough sketch underneath and filling in with colors as I go. Now going back to talking about museums, I have finished the fossil collection on Pacifica, my main island, and I'm getting pretty darn close on my side island just by virtue of the fact that I dig up all the fossils every day that I time travel to. I think I only have like maybe 6 fossils left or something like that. I haven't checked the last couple of days, maybe I should check, but it's pretty crazy how fast the fossils get filled up compared to literally everything else. Fossils get filled up really quick because you get between 4 to 5 fossils a day. I've definitely found 5 fossils on my island in a single day before. I think I'd read somebody said you could get up to 6. I don't know what that's based on, if there's like a luck system like there was in previous games that I'm not aware of. But yeah, you fill up the fossils so quick. But the good thing about this game is that you can display items outside, so the duplicate fossils actually aren't as useless as they have been in previous games. They're super useful because we have like the island shared with me and my boyfriend, and his part of the island is like a wildlife reserve, tropical, winding path through all the flowers and trees and all that kind of thing. And he uses the garden rocks for decor, but there's not a huge variety of garden rocks and things like that. Plus it just adds a little flavor to your island when you have a little bit of variety in the styles of rocks and natural features. It doesn't make your island feel as cluttered as if you had, say, a bunch of musical instruments or a bunch of, really colorful items outside. They kind of blend in with the atmosphere to have, like, these gray fossil rocks and things like that. And some of the items some of the fossils are, like, dual purpose. I've seen there was an awesome island tour video, I think, on Tagback TV of somebody's, like, 600 plus hour pirate themed island, and it's amazing. It makes me want to. You ever see a video you just want to like redo your entire island from scratch? That was one of the islands I've seen where I'm like, dang, I really need to redo all of this. But their island's amazing, and they use part of their decor is they use like the Australopithecus skull as like a human skull to be like, for that piratey vibe. And you can also use some of the other fossils for some people put the T-Rex fossils outside their museum for a dramatic entrance, and I really like how the amber looks, that really, that goldeny amber look to hide it tucked away between things on your island. Like, it just adds a nice natural touch and a little variety to islands that are, more nature-based or want to have a little variety in their natural terrain. Because I have this, like, dilemma where I love having a lot of stuff on my island because it makes it feel full and alive, but I don't want it to feel cluttered and jammed and like you're stuck behind a bunch of furniture items. So having a variety of natural items is a good way to achieve that, and the fossil duplicates really help with that. Getting back to the artwork here, I have taken my flat image from Adobe Animate and I save it to Dropbox, and then I import it from Dropbox into back into Procreate, and then I turn on the sketch layer and lower the opacity. That way I can see where I want to put my more cleaned up lines on top. So the brush I'm using here is a 6B pencil brush, which is a default Procreate brush. I think it's just underneath sketching or pencils or something like that. It's one that came with the program. I don't have a lot of downloaded brushes, but my next speed paint video I will be talking about the only brush set I've downloaded that I had a lot of fun using. I'll talk about that in the next video. But for these Animal Crossing pieces, I only use Procreate default brushes. So the only brushes you'll see me use in Procreate here is for the outlines and these little details like the shine in the eye. I use the 6B pencil brush. And for the texture I'll add in a little bit, I use the Bonobo chalk brush, which I think is under sketching or painting, I think, as well. Maybe it's definitely under sketching. And then for the background on this piece, the gradient, since I didn't want it to be a perfectly smooth airbrush gradient, I wanted a little bit of texture to it. I use Nico Roll, which is under painting. So those are the only 3 brushes I use. And for the Animal Crossing series, any that has a solid color background that doesn't have a gradient, I only use the 2 brushes, the 6B pencil and the Bonobo chalk brush. So yeah, I'm just going in and adding in all these outlines and little details on top of the flat colors. I try to keep the amount of lines I use to a minimum because I do want it to feel overall, lineless or more like a painting. But you just need a few outlines, I think, for this style to define it, because I don't want to do 3D, highly detailed painting style. So I keep it simple and limit how many outlines I do. I get really picky for some reason on that line on the beak, how I want it to look. I was like, it just wasn't looking right, and it wasn't looking right when I was copying the sketch, so I had to mess with it a little bit to make it something I was satisfied with. So you can just watch me mess around with that for a little bit and let the music play. One big advantage to time traveling on my side island, of course, has been getting access to the fish and bugs that I don't have access to on my main island. I do feel a little bit guilty, like, catching something out of season. It doesn't feel like as much of an accomplishment on the time travel island, for sure, as it would on my main island. But you know what? I missed out on a couple fish on my main island anyways. Like, I missed out on, what was it, the stringfish I didn't catch, or the dorado. I think there was a couple, like, rare fish I didn't catch back in March, before the month ended, so who knows, maybe on Attica, once I've finished moving stuff around, maybe I'll time travel back to that season, early spring, and then have me go visit me on that island and go try to catch one, maybe with a bunch of bait. I just don't have the patience to sit there with, like, 100 bait to catch a fish. I'm one of those, like, if I'm fishing and I happen to catch something cool, then cool, but I'm not gonna, like, go out of my way to catch a fish. Like, if I don't catch a fish that season, it wasn't meant to be. I'll just wait till it comes back around again, I guess. So maybe I won't time travel. Like, it gives me more reason to continue to be playing the game in early March next year on my main island, because I have no intention of time traveling on that one. Did you guys miss any fish over the last couple months, and you're just waiting for the next spring season to roll around again, or are you going to time travel or go to somebody else's time travel island and try to catch those that you didn't get? Right now, I still haven't caught the trevally, and I haven't caught the mahi-mahi yet. My cousin came over to visit my island and caught one off my dock. She was using fish bait, but I have not caught it yet. And I do make fish bait on occasion. I've been kind of slowly stockpiling it for the next fishing tourney, because that was such a pain in the neck last time. I went through all that effort on the day of the fishing tourney to sit there and, like, craft 100 bait, only to get the bronze trophy, because I just got tired of digging up manila clams and crafting bait. I got really burnt out on it. So this time I want to be ready. I want to have, like, a ton of bait. I want to have, 300 for the gold trophy? I think I have 100 bait stored currently. I gotta get on that, because I think the fishing tourney's coming up soonish, isn't it? Or is it the bug off? I don't know. I think it's the bug off first, but regardless, I need to get on crafting more bait, because next time I want that gold trophy, just to get the one gold trophy in my house, and then I'll never do it again. I'll only do it again if they change up the prizes, and the prizes are really cool. Other than that, I'm never doing a fishing tourney again once I get the gold trophy. Like, you can keep it, so I hope the bug off is a little more fun. I haven't tried the bug off, even though I could have on my side island. I think I skipped right around it because I was more focused on finishing paying off, moving, like, the campsite or something like that. Like, I didn't care on the side island as much about the events and things like that. And stuff that I would get so stoked about on my main island, like, oh, Sahara's here, maybe I'll get a really rare wallpaper. On my side island, I buy, like, one rug, and I'm like, I don't want to sit here through all the dialogue and deal with this. I'm trying to pay off a house or whatever. So I just, like, the stuff that matters to me so much on my main island that I get really excited about does not matter to me at all on my time travel island. That it's like an aesthetic island. Like, it only exists for me to use as kind of a creative playground for the whole, like, country island vibe, you know? It doesn't feel like a real place so much. And maybe that's because I don't have any villagers there that I, like, am obsessed with yet. What's funny is I have apple on both of my islands, but I intend to give apple away to a friend of mine once she has a plot open on her island. I've scanned in a Bob Amiibo coin 2 times now, and I'm waiting for the 3rd invite. I'm waiting for my friend to have a slot open so she can come take apple from me. But it's funny that even if I mess that up somehow, I have another shot to give her apple. But, you know, I kind of want to keep apple on my side island now. It's like we were meant to be, right? If you have a villager that shows up on both your islands, they love you and they want you to be their friend. So I think I will keep apple on Attica permanently. Going back to the drawing for a little bit, I messed around with the cheeks like way too much here. They gave me so much trouble for no good reason, so I'm happy that at this point in the video I finally was like, alright, I'm just gonna draw these on a new layer because these ain't right. The color was wrong, the shape was wrong, you know, whatever. Sometimes you just mess up stuff and have to go, alright, we're starting from square one again. So I'm happy I redid those cheeks because they were not looking good. I was just looking at the screen going, man, those don't look good. Is that what I really kept in the final thing? I already forgot like what I kept. Because I finished this art like, I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Because I was working on drawing other NPCs, but it was also fortuitous timing. I was helping my friend Dan with, we work on Animal Crossing guides when we both get a chance to do stuff like that. They're Pock and Ket's pocket guides, like we're both otters named Pock and Ket. Haha. I'll put a link to that in the description if I remember to, but you can follow us on Instagram or Twitter. And anyway, one of the guides was just a really quick like museum day stamp guide thing for the stamp event that's still going on. So it was fortuitous timing because he had said something like, let's make a quick thing for stamp day. I was like, okay, I just drew Blathers like yesterday, so it's fortuitous timing. But I have been on a kick of trying to, in between doing all the A to Z villagers, I've also been trying to do some more of the NPCs to do more videos like this. So be sure to, again, if you're still listening to this, let me know. Well, I guess if you're listening to this, that's proof positive that you like the longer format, right? So if you're this far in the video, let me know in the comments below if you've made it like 30 minutes into this 40-minute something video. Let me know that you like the longer format, and I will definitely put up more NPC real-time drawing videos, because I want to do like Rover and Harriet and Porter and Reese and Cyrus. Ooh, I should do Reese and Cyrus for the wedding event thing. That's definitely got to be next on the list. Okay, I'm not even going to put a poll up because I have to do Reese and Cyrus. But I'm thinking I'll put them both in the same picture like I did with Wilbur and Orville, the dodos. I think that would be cuter to have them both in the same picture, maybe in their wedding outfits. I don't know. Maybe let me know in the comments if you'd rather see them separate and in their work uniforms from retail, or if you'd rather see them together with like their wedding stuff. Maybe I might end up having to do both at some point. I'm not sure, but definitely a wedding one would be so cute and appropriate for the upcoming event. I also like doing some of the line details on a new layer in Procreate like this, because I think adding a mix of, so you have the clean hard edges of the feathers and the wing mixed with a little bit of that pencil texture from the white line I'm adding to the wing. I just think adding a little bit of texture variety like that is more interesting than having either everything pencil-y or everything super clean hard edged. You know, variety is the spice of life, so I always like doing little touches like this in Procreate on a new layer like this. It's something simple, but I think it adds a little character to the picture. And you can see I go over the lines a few times just to make sure they look right. I try not to fuss too much about it, especially with like the pencil brush and adding the texture on top. I don't think it matters so much if the lines are like crisp for this kind of thing. Like if they're a little bit wonky, I think it only adds to the look. It adds that hand-drawn feeling to it, because otherwise it would feel a little too sterile if you had the like the flat shapes with like perfect lines on top. So I don't mind the lines being a little bit wonky, but I do try to make them flow nicely, if that makes sense. So sometimes, like I did there, I'll overshoot the lines and then erase the ends, which is something I like to do when I'm doing like an outline of a piece that's like more line art heavy or whatever. And sometimes I'll you know, draw the line in one big smooth arc and then just erase the ends, and that usually ends up in a nicer looking line than you know, trying to do it perfectly the first time within the area it actually needs to be in. So here I'm using that Nico roll brush I was talking about to add in some color in the background. And what I do here is I set both the paintbrush and the smudge brush in Procreate to the Nico roll brush, and I just slap on the two colors I want and then use the smudge to kind of blend them out in a way that looks pleasing to me. You could either super blend it out and make it really soft, or just do kind of a chunky blur. I like erring on the side of it being a little chunky and, you know, not perfect, because I think it looks a little nicer. You could do whatever, and you could, you know, blur it out, airbrush if you want a really nice soft gradient, but super easy to get that kind of gradient look in Procreate without an actual gradient tool. And here I had forgotten to do the little details on the bow, but what I did do before I did the background colors is I'll talk about my shading process a little bit. I still get questions on it, even though I have a couple videos where I talk about it. Not everybody followed the channel before, you know, the Anka video blew up for one reason or another. The algorithm liked me, so I will explain my how I shade in this video again. So I took the flat colors of Blathers on the one layer, and I just duplicated the layer, and that duplicated layer I messed with the saturation, brightness, and the color of it to make it a little darker, a little less saturated, and a little more purple and blue, and that's the shadow layer. And what I do there is I click that layer and I click mask, and mask you either paint with black or white. Black takes away the layer, like erases it, and white brings it back. So it's a non-destructive way to edit the layer, so if you make a mistake you can just paint it back on or whatever. And I made it more intensely dark there just because the shadow wasn't, the shadow color wasn't dark enough for me. It wasn't giving me enough contrast, but this one I liked better. So I'm painting with a Bonobo chalk brush, and that adds a little bit of texture to the edges there. It makes it that nice soft chalky look. And I'm painting with a black paintbrush on that mask layer. And that's how I like to shade, is I don't actually paint with shadow. I prefer to add light. It makes more sense to my brain most of the time. Sometimes you'll see me go in and paint a shadow when I think an area needs it. Like I'll go back on areas that need a more crisp shadow, and I'll paint with the mask brush. I'll paint with it on white just to add some shadow back in. But to do the overall light, it makes more sense for my mind to paint the way that I think light would hit something. I can imagine like an imaginary light source hitting certain spots and then illuminating it by painting with this black brush on this masked shadow layer. So that's what I do here. And there's no real right or wrong way to add shadows in. You'll have people sometimes insist that, you know, shadows need to be set to a certain color mode on this layer and done with these brushes and whatever. Unless you're going for like a photorealistic style, I don't really think it matters so much how you add light or shadow. I've seen artists, you know, paint with light. I've seen artists, I've seen artists add shadows to different layers and do all kinds of techniques to make their illustrations lit the way they want them to be lit. But this is just what works for me. So if you'd like to try it out for yourself, maybe you'll find it easier as well. And in the early days, in the Anka video, I had said like, oh, I don't use a mask, I just erase because I want to commit to the choices I'm making. And that does work too. That is something you could do, is you could have the shadow layer and you only use the eraser brush, and if you mess up you just got to deal with it, right? Or undo one move and then erase again. But I think the mask definitely works better now that I'm used to this workflow and I don't get as nitpicky. I think my fear before was getting too nitpicky and spending like hours on each piece, which ended up not happening. It actually made my my process faster. So I would definitely recommend the mask. If you're the type of person that worries that you're gonna, finagle and overwork something for hours, then maybe use the eraser, because then you can just kind of commit to your decision and move on. But for me, I found the mask really helps, because then I can go in and re-add shadows to areas that need it more easily, which you can't really do when you have when you've been erasing the layer. It's not so easy to go in and you can go in and add it back, but it's more trouble than it's worth. With the mask, it's super easy because you just switch between black or white to add or remove things. So of course the video with the old technique was the one that went viral. I always find that funny. People always say that too. It's like on YouTube, the one video that like you didn't expect people to watch is the one that people watched. I thought if anything, the video that, you know, people would want to click on is like the A video in my A to Z playlist, rather than the video that was like kind of an introduction to drawing all the characters. I don't know. It's just funny that that's the one that caught people's attention, but I'm grateful for it because I got a lot of really nice comments and feedback on it, and I still want to do that frequently asked questions video because I do get the same like 3 or 4 questions on the video all the time, and I'm happy to answer when I can, and the comments have slowed down now so I can actually just like manually answer, but for a while I couldn't because I was getting like a lot of comments when the video was first starting to get traction, so I was like, oh geez, how do I tell like 100 different people that I have a playlist with their favorite villager in it? Because that video, I think it's only the B name villagers, right? I think it's just like all the B name sketches and not, it definitely wasn't the entire alphabet. So people are like, you didn't draw Rosie. I'm like, yeah, I did. You have to go to this other video. So that's not as easy to explain to, you know, many individual comments. So for example here, right in between the eyes, I wanted a little bit more shadow there, and I kind of play with it by painting back in with that white paintbrush. And I also like having a little bit of shadow at the top of the eyes just to make the eyes feel a little bit more 3D or whatever. So yeah, that's definitely a huge advantage of using a mask. You can just, you know, mess around with painting in shadows back in once you've done your first pass of lighting. Makes things look really, really nice. I think definitely these pieces that I've done like a year later are definitely stronger than like the Anka piece or like the ones I did a year ago. So I've learned a few things along the way. Like it's still basically the same art style and more or less the same workflow, but I think overall I'm getting faster and more proficient at doing this kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of speed paint videos I make a year from now. I guess technically this isn't a speed paint since it's not sped up, but I think you know what I'm saying. What kind of painting videos I'll make a year from now. I'm definitely feeling that I'm talking more in this video than I did in the Tom Nook real-time speed paint video, or real-time painting drawing video, because my throat is getting hoarse. I do talk a lot to the people I know, but usually I don't talk for 40 minutes straight, so it's not something I'm used to, which is kind of funny. But so we're definitely getting to the end of this video because I'm onto these little final touches, and this is something I started doing with, I think, Tom Nook and a couple other characters, where I started adding this like little shine to the eyes. Also using the Bonobo chalk brush, I just went on a new layer and painted with purple. This wasn't like an edited shadow layer or anything like that. Just added a new layer and went in with purple with that Bonobo chalk brush and softly painted it in and carved it out to be that little like moon shape. This is very inspired by like Kirby and, you know, other Nintendo characters that have that like little pop of blue at the bottom of their black pupil. I think it's a nice fun way of adding color to an eye without necessarily adding an iris, because sometimes I think an iris can kind of take away from a cartoony looking character. It's just sometimes the character looks better with like black beauty pupils and no color around it. It kind of can soften the look of a character when you want them to look a little bit more sharp and dynamic. So I think adding the color to the black of the eye is a good way to add a touch of color without stripping some of that cartoony look out of the eye and adding, you know, making it look a little bit too realistic for the style. So it's a little something I'm going to keep doing for characters like this moving forward, I think. And I wanted to go in and make the whites of the eyes a little bit more purple. I wanted the atmosphere of the piece to feel a little bit more, I don't know, dreamy, cool, nighttime-ish. I guess not nighttime, maybe twilight or something. I just wanted a little more, I don't know, a little bit dimmer lighting in the whole piece. Because his eyes wouldn't be, like, super white. I guess it doesn't matter because he's a cartoon. Like, in cartoons, the eyes will be white in a lot of scenes, even if the lighting doesn't really call for it, and that's totally fine. But just for this, I wanted it to feel a little bit more purple and dreamy. I don't really know what setting he would be in, but maybe outside at twilight, you know, talking to Celeste about, you know, wow, I never get to leave the museum. I'm always in there, but tell me more about the stars. You know, maybe he's learning more about astronomy from her. That would be a cute picture to do, like just a standalone of them hanging out and learning about fossils and stars outside together or something. And I will be doing a standalone speed paint of Celeste as well, though a video I'm working on is I did a commission with someone and their character hanging out with Celeste, so I don't want to do like 2 Celeste videos back to back unless people are like crazy about Celeste and would love to see that. But definitely when I do her speed paint, I also want her to look very cheery and happy like this, and I want her to have the like big sparkles in her eyes. You guys know the look I'm talking about. She looks up in the sky and she slightly opens her beak like, wow, and she gets like the little, you know, shiny sparkles in her eyes, so I definitely want to do that. Yeah, I add little tiny sparkles here because I think I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking I want to have a matching drawing of Celeste. I think I'll have her looking to the right, almost as if they're both like looking up toward the middle, up toward like a star or something cool happening in the sky, a meteorite or something. And it's these little last minute touches that I think really help make this piece, you know, stronger than some of the other ones I've done in the past, which is cool. It's nice to visually see that what you're doing is getting a little bit better over time. Overall, I think he came out pretty cool. Let me know if you guys liked me blathering on about Blathers for about 40 minutes. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and hit the bell to be notified of new uploads every single week. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a fantastic rest of your day.